episode of HR and Payroll 2.0. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. Let's give it a roll today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Friday. And we've got a guest this week. I'm really, really happy to invite to the show and welcome to the show, I should say, my good friend and HR, I would say HR expert, all around HR expert, especially operations, HR operations and strategy. So welcome, Kevin McDonald from Scripps Company.
Pete, Julie, it's great being with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, likewise. You know, we always catch up at various events on the road and have some great conversations. And I thought it'd be great to have you on and have you tell your story around transformation. I know you've been through a few iterations of that, and really excited to have you share that with our audience.
Awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. So look, maybe Kevin, you could start with telling us a little bit about your role at the Scripps Company and a little bit about Scripps. I'm familiar, and I know Julie is a little bit, but we'd love to have you kind of maybe tell us about what your role is there, because you've been there for a little while now.
Yeah, I'm in my 16th year at Scripps now, which feels like 3 or 4 different lifetimes with the pace of change at Scripps. But a little bit about Scripps first. We're 140 plus year old media company. Started in newspapers in Cleveland, Ohio back in the 1870s.
Wow.
With the penny press. Scripps started that. It was the first paper that was really targeted at the non-rich, basically. And so that was a great start for our company. We've been in just about every kind of media you can think of, radio, TV, cable networks, etc. And, kind of where we find ourselves today after, many transformations is we own 61 TV stations in 41 markets. We have 8 national networks, like ION, for example. And we have a new Scripps sports division that's really targeted at getting sports rights. So we just signed a deal with the WNBA.
Oh, congrats!
And have some others in the works. So that's a brand new venture of ours that I'm excited as a sports fan, but also as obviously wanting our company to do well. I'm excited kind of on both fronts there. A lot of people probably know us from the Scripps National Spelling Bee, which actually just wrapped up in end of May. We've been doing that for 90 years. So very entertaining and very, I think, awe-inspiring when you see some of these young kids do. So
yes. Very cool stuff.
There.
I always watch it and envy how badly they would kick my butt at a spelling duel. I would not. I grew up in the autocorrect generation, I think, with Microsoft. So yeah, I'm horrible at that. But shout out to the reigning champion, the Spelling Bee champion for 2023, Dev Shaw, who is from Largo, Florida. So I'm a Florida boy, so proud to see that. And I do watch every year, again, in awe. And you're right, it's incredible. I can't imagine the preparation that must go into that.
Yeah, the kids are very impressive, and getting to hear their stories, outside of just Spelling Bee, I think is kind of what makes that broadcast so successful over the years. So
it's great for your brand too, right? I mean, I don't know if I think a lot of people, that's the way that they understand the Scripps brand is by way of the Spelling Bee. So I'm not sure everyone knows what the background of what Scripps does. So very cool. But look, I can relate. It's a dynamic industry. I worked around radio and television with the Walt Disney Company back when they owned ESPN Radio and Disney Radio and Paul Harvey. I used to pay Paul Harvey, for example. And all those great stations. Now all that's been sold off, I think, since then, and they've pushed that to different organizations that run radio purely. But it's very dynamic. And one of the things I'm really excited to talk to you about is just the evolution of the company, right? You guys seem to be very agile, and you pivot with the times, right? With the digital movement. And I think that, and I know about a lot of the HR part of that. So I'm excited to talk to you about that as we get a little further on in the conversation. But we do have some news today. So I'd love to maybe hit on that a little bit. Julie, I think you had one, and I've got a couple of things I found out this week too that I thought we could cover on.
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring up one that was announced here a couple of weeks back at the end of June. Mercer just announced they were selling off kind of their remaining benefits admin business to Bain. And I think we'll see that kind of take on a new life form as Aptia. is the name of the firm. And at first it was a little bit of a head scratcher because there were already, previously health and benefits administration work that had been sold off to Morneau Chappelle. I think that was, I want to say around 2019. I don't remember exactly when that was. And that's now become TELUS Health. So, it just kind of left me thinking for the last few weeks, what was left? What was there left? And in particular, there was definitely some stuff around the Mercer tech space that had been there for a while. Maybe Mercer Marketplace Exchange is probably one of the,
yes.
things that people might really recognize or relate to. And in doing some digging, kind of the whole administrative organization around that, which serviced some DB and health and welfare clients, was part of that spinoff. Some of them, those groups were, some of those clients actually went down market a little ways when you start talking about the exchanges and the DB activity. So not all large market clients. That went down to the mid-market and smaller market clients. They had some health and welfare presence in Iowa. The exchanges I mentioned before, and the retiree in the active employee side, and a lot of small market DB. I also know that the UK pension admin piece was in there. That was significant, and some India support and global. And I was a little surprised when I learned that there was, all in all of those bits and pieces were like 3,000 people or so. So It was a little bit bigger than I thought when I first heard it. I do want to mention, just since I live in the HR, HCM space so much, that digital Mercer and the Workday SI practice and some of that stuff is not really a part of it. But on the Ben admin side, it looks like that kind of takes Mercer back to its consulting roots, and Aptio will spin off under, and I'll never get the name right, but some new leadership there who I'm sure is quite excited about the opportunity to be in a situation where there's investment and excitement and fresh eyes looking at them in the market. So
yeah, I think this is a sort of thing where, it sounds like they're taking away something they're not that focused on and giving it to someone who is, and that's always healthy for that product to grow. So yeah, very cool. And benefits is, wow, it seems like it's it's so important, right? And the term has a different meaning everywhere, especially in America versus outside. But I'm finding that this conversation, especially adjacent to payroll, where benefits is popping up more and more as a key area that folks are looking to solve and maybe improve upon to be more competitive or to save costs or improve costs. So I think you're going to see more consolidation here, because let's face it, it's not a super crowded market, right? There's plenty of options to get help, but it's not overly crowded. So I think we'll see more maybe getting together.
Yeah, lots of thoughts on that. I'm sure we can talk about later. What else did you scrape up, Pete? For this week?
So a couple of pieces in the payroll and EOR world. Payslip, my good friends at Payslip, one of my clients, just added a new reconciliation solution to their platform. It's something that will continuously monitor data in and out of the system in real time and detect any issues and variances to surface those. So kind of the sort of thing that you're expecting now with bidirectional interfaces between systems. You're looking for that real time, proactive data quality tools. So very, very indicative of the stuff that Payslip is building over there to highly automate the payroll process. Globalization Partners, GP, as they are now known, expanded GP Meridian, which we talked about a few months ago, right? It's the replatforming of all of their tech and services. So really bringing in just a couple of new enhancements around a new digital wallet capability that has a virtual debit card. Not surprising, right? That's become hugely popular, connected to payments, payment solutions being connected to payroll and EOR, and more workflow and self-serve coming into that. And then, of course, the ability to actually amend contracts within GP Meridian. So if you know Globalization Partners well, one of the things they've been doing, I think, over the years is increasingly creating more of an automated DIY experience around the EOR capabilities that they have with Meridian, and really giving you the opportunity to come in, make informed decisions with their data, if to employ someone in a certain country, contract that, and basically begin to onboard them, very, very rapidly versus a back and forth manual sort of effort, right? It's very streamlined and automated. So so payroll and EOR, right, continuing to get more and more tech, and I think we'll certainly see more coming over the coming months and certainly into fall. I'm excited for what we're going to see in the second half 2022 and then or 23, and then of course what'll be new coming into 24 with those H2 releases. So lots of good stuff. Yeah.
Well,
All right. So
let's jump back
I
to
know.
Kevin, and
let's get back to Kevin. Kevin, any thoughts on any of those things? Any of those pique your interest as far as what you're hearing there in the market or what you're dealing with in your work?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me, I know AI is a big buzz now, and a lot of folks in my position are trying to figure out how to most strategically use that, whether that's an efficiency thing. Is it really going to make us more productive? Whatever that answer is going to be. But the other thing that I'm seeing, and kind of what you were just talking about, Pete, a little bit, is around data. And I think the vendors are really starting to position themselves for clients in terms of what data they can give you, which really puts an onus on us as clients to be able to take that data and actually do something with it and tell a story with it, whether that's an ROI, whether that's a value add to the organization beyond what may be obvious. So it's it'll be real interesting to see how the skill sets in HR progress over the years to try to keep up with what the vendors are, providing us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very tech. I think it's going to be very tech intuitive, right? But also you're going to need to understand how that stuff works. And you're right. The AI, we talk about it replacing people, but I really think it's going to be much more of an augmentation and an uplift to where, because you're going to have the emotional intelligence still looking at this data and this information. And you're going to own that, right? As an organization, when it comes to AI, you can't just blindly trust these solutions. You got to know what they're doing and how they're using your information and have that practitioner view and be that lens to be able to put to that. I think is going to be really important. So it's going to be a different role for sure in the future. And I think the soft skills are going to be really, really, really important around that. So look, I want to get into learning more about Scripps and what you guys have been through, but I want to kind of ask you an easy question right up front, Kevin. How did you get into HR and why have you stayed? We asked that. I love to ask that of payroll practitioners, but same thing goes for HR. What got you here and what keeps you around?
Yeah, so I kind of lucked into HR. I tell people I started in the workforce right out of high school.
Yeah.
And was a non-traditional, college student, went at night and, eventually finished my degree going in the evening after, I'd been in the workforce for a little while and been married, had a kid and, all that stuff. And, eventually finished the degree at night. So I was a non-traditional student. But my first job out of high school, I kind of lucked into the employee file room. It was obviously a very entry level position, but that's just where the bank that I went to work for Fifth Third Bank here in Cincinnati, had an opening. So, didn't really know anything about human resources. Some would argue I still don't, but I definitely didn't then. But started entering new hires into the payroll system, which actually was Genesis back in those days. So
wow.
I'm probably from memory here, and I did that for about a year and a half, and a position came open in the benefits department doing 401k and enrollments and pension calcs, and literally pension calcs by hand. This is the days before systems that did that for you. So, which was kind of interesting, being the 19 or maybe early or right around 20-year-old doing pension calcs, but it certainly was an eye-opening experience and gave me I think a little bit of a love for kind of the different things that you could do in HR. And so I started, as opportunities came up, I just started bouncing to other areas. And really, I think what kept me in HR was I have a kind of a love for problem solving.
Yeah.
And there's always always an issue to solve. Like one of my favorite early examples was we hired a new benefits director. This is probably about 4 years into my career. And open enrollment came up, and we had a couple thousand people in downtown Cincinnati in the buildings that we had. And he and I spent a Sunday walking around the building, dropping off open enrollment packets on desks. And then we had to collect those open enrollment packets and hand key in all of the benefit elections. And he and I looked at each other and said,
Are you tired of talent and HR podcasts that sound like corporate training videos? Same. Talentless is the no-fluff show about hiring, leadership, culture, and what's actually going on in the world of work. Talentless is a podcast for recruiters by recruiters. Hosted by Desiree Goldie and Ashley King, they're smart, occasionally salty, and never afraid to say what everyone else is thinking. Listen wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe at talentlesspodcast.com.
why are we doing this? And B, we're never doing this again. And he basically said, go figure out a way that we can never do this again. And so I actually partnered with a web development firm. They were not an HR specialty firm. They just designed websites for people, and partnered with them. And they built us our first open enrollment website. And so I would kind of say the rest is history in terms of, why I ended up staying, because being able to take a problem, look for a solution. In a lot of cases, that solution involved technology, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Was something that really just appealed to me. And so, 20 some odd years later, here I am.
Here you are, still here. Well, we're thankful to have you. And it's, I really appreciate that you point out that non-traditional path, because I wish more young people did that today, or had the opportunity to do that today, right? Maybe work for a little bit and understand what they want to do and where they fit in order to go off and then sort of finish their degree. So I love that you kind of did that in parallel. I did that as well. And I think it was really, really beneficial for me because I was able to hone in. So I love that you mentioned that too. But
and Pete, I would tell you that if I had gone to college right out of high school, I would have never
gone to HR.
Gone into HR, ever.
Sorry, I was finishing your statement there. Okay. I probably would have done the same thing.
Ironically, what I wanted to do, if you asked me in high school, was to be a sports reporter. Okay. So all these years later, now I'm at Scripps, but in a different capacity.
Very cool. And benefits of all places at a very young age, ripe age of 19.
So yes. Kevin, your story gives me a little bit of a throwback, especially as the 19-year-old dealing with pensions and retirement, because I was probably knocking around my first job at the same time as you, and ended up in a consulting organization that was building some of the earliest shared service centers. So our group was building the GM National Benefit Center. And my very first project right off the press was to do a Medicare verification audit. And, the concept was around if the Medicare information is in a system, then, Medicare pays first and the company pays second. And so just, reaching out and capturing Medicare information from the retiree or over 65 or whatever the age was then, right, population. And I thought the same thing in my day, like, this is just ironic that I'm working so closely with a whole set of things that I really am not ready to be thinking about right now.
Right.
Yeah. Discomfort has a way of making us very innovative, very fast,
it really
right?
Does.
So Kevin, tell us a little bit about the EW Scripps Company, what the culture, kind of what it's like in media operations, HR, supporting that, right? And you guys have, again, been through a few pivots over the years, rightfully so, right, with digital. But what's that like?
Yeah. I'll give you the kind of the quick story. And certainly we can dive into any of these, but I joined Scripps in 2007. And in 2007, we were a company. We had, I think, 9 TV stations at that time, 13 newspapers, and we had, I think it was 5 or 6 cable networks. So Food Network, HGTV. HGTV was actually started by a former CEO of ours.
Oh, wow.
He was CEO when the CEO and the COO, when I joined the company, they were the ones who actually had the idea for HGTV. And it is a phenomenal story of listening to them back in, I think, 1988 or something like that. Talking to, the old executives at the company, and they're like, hold on, you're telling me people are going to watch people paint on TV? And
or cook,
sure
right?
enough, all these years later, one of the more popular cable networks. But at that time, I came in to help lead the HR transformation effort. So Scripps at that point was I think we had, as an example, 43 FTE doing payroll.
Oh, wow.
For a company that was just around 10,000 employees. We had 27 variations of a payroll cycle, which I didn't even know you could have that many, but we did. And so we were as disparate as you could possibly get from a process standpoint. Technology was borderline non-existent. We had PeopleSoft, but it was just enough to get you paid in benefits. That's all we had rolled out.
Yeah.
And so I came in to help lead our HR transformation, which was a couple of things: to bring in A, more technology, and B, to centralize and or source a lot of the back office operations as it relates to HR. So, which I had in my previous company, we were one of the very early adopters of HR outsourcing. And so had some experience with that going in. And it was nice to be able to have a kind of an opportunity to go through it again, but with your, knowing what you know now kind of approach. So at that point in 2007, and I apologize, I have
no problem. We're dog friendly here.
Four-legged coworkers that you may be hearing from time to time, but at that
it's all good, Kevin. This show is 100% authentic, so you can swear, we can bark, whatever. It doesn't matter. We do whatever we want.
They may be swearing. I don't know. It just depends on who's walking by the house.
I just need to flag it as explicit on the show. That's all. When we upload.
That's great.
Oh, my.
No worry. They're welcome. Four legs are welcome. It's all good. Yeah. Everyone's welcome.
So at the point I came in 2007, it was in February. In October of 2007, we announced that we were going to be splitting our company. So we were taking our cable networks and we had a couple of websites, like commercial websites, one over in the UK actually, that we were going to spin off into a separate company, and we were going to keep TV and newspapers in a company by itself. So in the middle of our HR transformation effort, we decided to split the company.
Oh my goodness.
That was just the first of a few examples like that where, Scripps has constantly trying to evolve with the consumer. But also, we say it a lot. Hey, we're a 140-year-old company. We want to be around for another 100 years. Right. So what is it going to take for us to be around? And we've had very forward-looking leadership, and certainly in my time here, but certainly in our company's history as well. And leadership that is not afraid to take a risk, leadership that is not afraid to be a leader in the space and do what we think is right. And so from that standpoint, I would tell you that, look, I don't come from a media background. So some of it doesn't always, make sense to me, initially, because I don't have that level of understanding. But I would tell you from just an employee standpoint first, being an employee of the company and obviously vested in its success, it's encouraging to me that we're not just sitting still waiting for something to happen. We're trying to get out ahead. And then, look, we divested our newspapers in 2016 or 2015. That was a massive step for our company to exit that space. That's where we got our start 100 plus years ago. Yeah. So, we're not afraid to make those decisions and evolve with, with what we think is going to, again, perpetuate us 100 years from now. So it's very encouraging from just being an employee. From a standpoint of me as a leader in the HR space and HR operations, it is a constant evolution of how we have to operate to support what the organization is doing. Yeah. And so change and adaptability, from me and my team, those are probably two skills that I put very high on the list. You got to know the payroll space. You got to know technology. You have to know all those things. But if you are not ready for change and if you're not adaptable, you're not going to be very successful here. So I put those very high on the list of things that I look for in my people.
Yeah, you have a very unique experience, Kevin. I mean, you've been in an organization that is highly agile, has remained highly agile, and at the same time, your HR has had to keep pace with that, right, and be nimble with them. But that you have to have. You need to write a book. To be honest, you need to write a book about all this. But a lot of people don't get to live it this way in terms of, a lot of people don't stay at companies this long anymore. But also, a lot of companies don't have that investment that you were just talking about their culture wanting to really stay ahead of things. So yeah, it's really fascinating. I think you're very fortunate in the experience that you've had. What about just the way in which HR has to be that sort of nimble, agility enabler, right? Like, how do you guys do it? How do you keep up with the Scripps organization moving the way it does and changing? And we all know some of that is just the media industry. It's just the way it is. You have to be very fast, and you have to be very, I think you do have to take some chances, especially nowadays, but how do you guys manage it from the HR perspective? Like, what do you do? Is it, I mean, you mentioned change and communication, but how do you guys keep up?
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, and I actually said this at one of our HR leadership team meetings recently. I kind of view us as an antidote to chaos, right? Yeah. When you're going through the amount of change that we go through, and other companies do as well. Certainly, that's not exclusive to Scripps. But when you go through the amount of change and your employees are going through that change in terms of the way they do business or the way the company's doing business, there are certain things that have to be consistent. There are certain things that you have to continue to get right, even in the midst of all that change. Right. Obviously near and dear to your heart, payroll. I tell people all the time, I have a way for people to forget about all your initiatives. Mess up their pay one time. Yeah, right. I guarantee they will forget about everything else until that's right. And so, we have to be consistent. So, whether we're, during our deployment of Workday in 2018, while we had 3 acquisitions going on at the same time as we were implementing Workday, at the same time as we were having to, keep the lights on with our current solution, there's no excuse. We have to get this done. We have to continue to get this right. There's nothing that's going to erode trust more than when some of those, baseline services, don't work, right? When you come in the house and you flip the light switch, the lights better come on, right? Yeah. So, I think I have a team of people that truly believe that what we do matters, even though, nobody knocks on your door and says, "Hey, thanks for getting my pay right, this week. Hey, thanks for making sure, my, United Healthcare knows I have coverage this week." Nobody does that. But that's the consistency that's required, because again, there's so much other change going on. So, I think from an HR standpoint, that operational excellence, and that focus on, what I would call the kind of the bottom of the hierarchy of needs, right? Which is, people's pay and benefits. That's their security.
Hey, Kevin, I'd love to ask you a couple of tactical strategies or just items, to know whether they've fallen under your purview or on your radar. There are things that I hear oftentimes from organizations that either need to be agile or trying to be agile. And one of those is, owning or having some direct reporting relationship to a PMO or change management for the organization. And you just made me wonder if that has been a part of HR at Scripps now or over the years, or if that might be an element of secret sauce.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done almost 30 different transactions in my time here, whether that's, acquisitions, mergers, divestitures, with 3 of those being what I would call, transformative in nature, very, very large changes. The deal we did in 2015 with Journal was, industry analysts said this was the most complex transaction they've ever seen. So, in our industry. So we've gone through some stuff and we've gotten really good at it. One of the things that I brought to the table, when I joined the Third Bank at my previous employer, we had gone through 30 plus acquisitions as well. And I was a member from the HR capacity. I was a member of that acquisition team. And so as Scripps started to do those type of transactional activities, that's something I could bring to the table, some experience with that. So, we have had, when I first joined the company, change and, change management was kind of done within each group, or in the case of like larger projects, you might partner with a consulting firm to kind of bring some of that expertise. Over the years, we have actually brought in, and we have now on our corporate communications team, change management skills. So we partner with them, both from a communications and change management perspective, very closely. I mean, I just consider them part of HR. I mean, right. Yes, I know they report through Corp Com, but they're just part of the team. So, and we've worked really, really well together. But I would say the other thing and the other tactic that we've done from the very beginning is HR, my group kind of within HR, IT, and finance and accounting are tied to the hip.
What happens when employees behave badly? Boy, we could do an entire TV show, maybe a Netflix special on that. Well, Ryan and I sat down and recorded episodes for FAMA, and we asked practitioners, give us your most outrageous story. The sales leader that brings cocaine to work, whatever. Just bring us the outrageous, and it is funny. So if you need a laugh, which we all do from time to time, search for Workplace Misconduct wherever you get your podcast, and you'll find it. And trust me, you will laugh and cry, but you'll definitely laugh. All right. Thank you. Hey, this is William Tincup. Listen, we did a series for iSolved called Heroes of HR, where we talk to HR practitioners. And these are just your run-of-the-mill, everyday, slogging it out, 300 employees in Cedar Rapids, HR pros. Mostly it's centered around iSolved and what they do with iSolved, but also they talk a lot about kind of the day-to-day rigor of HR. If you're curious about that, search for Heroes of HR wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
And there's way too much overlap in terms of what we do and our impact that we can have on each other, in terms of, whether it's the way something's coded in a system that's going to affect the downstream interface, whatever it is, there's way too much overlap in what we do for us to not be on the same page. So very early on in any type of projects, the first thing we do is get together. Like, okay, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Let's make sure we're all marching to the same beat. And that, I'm not going to flip a switch that's going to negatively impact you upstream or downstream. So I would say, just having that type of working relationship with some of your key partners internally is another way that you can avoid disaster.
Do you guys use sort of a center of expertise for your change then, Kevin?
We do, and it's in our corporate communications group. So, I mean, you have people, like myself, but you have other people, whether it be in HR, IT. We've been through so much change. We know what it takes.
You're good at it.
Yeah. So that coupled with the center of expertise that we have, I think we've, from a transactional kind of change perspective, we do really well.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. Most organizations are not good at that, and many overlook that. Yeah. So you've been through a couple of iterations of HR transformation. I know I was very privileged. Kevin, you were one of the first buyers I really studied early in my career as an analyst. Remember, we did an interview together that we recorded in Cincinnati. It was a great day. I enjoyed that. And you've been through these iterations, right? And I think in some ways, each time you've sort of leveled up, right? I mean, what would be your maybe tips for being successful in this continual change environment? And what advice would you maybe have for other leaders that are getting into a transformative project?
Oh, I cannot say emphatically enough, embrace it.
Yeah.
Absolutely embrace it. There's nothing. Look, Pete, you've got to have a sense of adventure, right? I mean, like full stop. Like if you don't have that, you're probably not going to be long for the job because it's just going to exhaust you, right? Given that, I would say embrace the change in two ways. One, it's going to the things that you can bring to the table beyond what your job description says that you do.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things I love about Scripps and the opportunities I've had here is, as people have seen me do certain things, they realize, oh, he's good at that. Let's use him here. And an example is when in a deal we had with where we outsourced some finance and accounting work, back office finance and accounting work overseas. That deal was not going well. It was not going as intended, and they asked me to come in and kind of help with mediation of that. And now I know nothing about finance and accounting. That's not my area. Never sat in that area and done any real work. But it wasn't about knowing finance and accounting. It was about understanding why this change didn't go well. Yeah. And so, that was an opportunity for me to flex some different muscles and also learn, and gain some trust in the organization. So the next thing that came up was, hey, we really need a solution around our sales compensation. It's kind of done all throughout the company. We want to centralize that and have a little more better control over that. Right. Is that a project you can help lead? So as you show additional value that you can bring to the table, there's going to be more opportunities for you. So that's one reason to embrace it. And the second reason to embrace it is if you truly have a constant, desire to learn, then there's nothing better than going through change. You'll learn so much about yourself. You'll learn something about your team, your colleagues. You'll meet people that you may have otherwise never met, and the stuff that you can learn from them. I mean, you want to talk about writing a book? I could write a book on the stuff that I've learned from other people. Yeah. And the impact that's had on me. And if you're humble enough to actually say, you know what, I am going to learn from everybody that I meet. I'm going to try to learn something. It's such an enriching thing, not just in my professional life, but in my personal life as well. Yeah. I use, in the things I'm involved with beyond, work, I use the lessons that I've learned in my professional life as much there as I do at work.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Yeah, you mentioned earlier about M&A, right? I mean, I was thinking along the lines of my experience, like, those are often the most complicated and sometimes painful things to go through, right? They're normally shotgunned in and mm-hmm. no one knew about them sometimes. It sounds like you guys communicate really well in your organization. So I applaud you on that. I think that's a big part of your success, it sounds. But like sometimes those things aren't entirely communicated well. And it's just this sort of nightmare situation sometimes as you're doing it, but you come out of it like, wow, it's like a boot camp. A merger mm-hmm. and acquisition in HR is like a boot camp. And you end up learning, I did, more from that one project than I did probably on any other project, any other time. And it was well worth the pain of it all, and very gratifying at the other side of it, right? To see what comes out of it. And it's so important that HR gets that right. That's such a big piece of mergers happening. So
I think the same can be said for some of these really big transformations, whether, like organizations that haven't gone to the cloud yet that are doing that, but embracing and understand that operating model change needs to happen, that the interaction model and even the channels of access to HR information are different, and they just fundamentally change. And I find myself with practitioner projects right now, just giving that same message, Kevin, only maybe I'm not always sharing from the best perspective, like embrace the change, because going through a large transformation gives you skills that are extremely important in the market. And so, you don't want to necessarily encourage people to go someplace else with those skills, but those skills teach you about what you need to constantly evolve your organization and to help it be more agile at the core. Because a broader base of employees really gets, engaged and excited and enthusiastic about taking their destiny, right? And making HR into the next best thing.
Yeah, Julie, I could not agree more. I think, obviously, for those people, look, you never know what's going to happen. Somebody could come in and buy your company and you could be out of a job. So making yourself more marketable, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And something that people should, even if you're not actively looking, making yourself more marketable. But I would say the word I would throw in there is making yourself more confident, right?
Yeah.
The more you do these things and the more you put yourself in situations where you're not comfortable, I tell the kids I coach all the time, get comfortable being uncomfortable, not just because it's going to make you better at basketball, but it's going to make you better at life. Because life, it was, Kara Lawson, who's the Duke coach, she said, look, it's not about avoiding hard. It's making hard easier.
Yep.
Like you're going to go through hard stuff. Yeah. We want to make it easier. You're not going to avoid going through hard stuff. So I think every time you put yourself in that situation of going through, a merger and acquisition, Pete, to your point, or Julie, any type of transformational change, you're going to be better at it each time, and you're going to grow your own personal confidence that'll give you that confidence to take, hey, Kevin, we want you to take a more active role this next time. Okay, great. I have the confidence to do that. And I think, the ability to deal with change and be comfortable with change, in today's world, I can't think of a more needed skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and all of those sort of soft skills are going to be so key, as practitioners, right? Not just knowing compliance, not just knowing how the tech works, but being able to bring that emotional intelligence and that creativity and leadership to the table is going to be super important. And you're right. When you go through these things, that's how you grow and learn them. And the most painful ones are the ones you learn the most from.
There's no question. You learn from failure. I gave a little bit of an end of season speech a couple of years ago to my team, and the parents are in the room as well. And, one of the things I told them was, you should crave adversity. Yeah. You should almost crave opportunities to fail, because that's where you're going to learn the most. The most growth is going to come from those opportunities and going through those experiences. And it's okay, right? There are certain things you don't want to get wrong, like we talked about earlier in our business. Yeah, you want to make sure you got, 6,000 people every 2 weeks relying on that pay to go into their accounts. You better get that right. But you can't let that, fear keep you from doing other things that, again, will help you stretch those muscles. I mean, it's like, if you never work out, you're never going to, your muscle never going to change and, eventually wither. Right. So these are, I think the other thing people don't realize is, like, these are disposable skills. These are things that will go away if you don't use them. So to me, I encourage that, not only with the people I'm around, but, the people that the people on my team, the people that I work with, honestly, it's given me, going through that stuff has given me the confidence to join, nonprofit boards and things like that as well. Right. Because I know, while I don't necessarily may not know anything about, parts of it, I know I can help because I know these things. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's, it's just opened so many doors for me. So
that's great.
Julie, your point is so well taken.
Yeah. How about the technology perspective, Kevin? Obviously I happen to know you guys have been through a couple of iterations of leveling up your HCM technology as an organization, but how important has that been to enabling your culture and enabling your success as far as an organization, an HR organization, supporting your, bigger business?
Yeah. So, look, I think technology takes a couple different, tracks, right? There's part of it that is that idea that, that I talked about earlier, that when I come in the door and flip the light switch on, the lights better come on, right? There are parts of the technology. Is it dependable? Is it reliable? Is it available to me? And, whether I'm sitting at my desk or on my phone, or, like, there's just certain things that I just consider table stakes. And so making sure that we're keeping up from that standpoint, and that we're always providing or working with vendors who help provide that experience is very important. That kind of the other track with technology is, I've said for years, look, good talent management can be done on, a napkin, right? Like, you don't have to have technology. but how can we use technology to make it easier, to make it more accessible, to make it more inclusive so that everyone has the opportunity, right? And it's not just, well, Pete knows Kevin, so that's why Kevin got the opportunity, right? And so how can we use technology to make sure that, we're truly looking across all 6,000 of our employees to utilize and, the highest and best use of, all the skills that we have internally. So there are opportunities there from a technology standpoint to make sure that we're being good stewards of the company's resources, which, in my case are the human resources, right? So I think, from that standpoint, it's been a lot about partnering with our other centers of excellence to make sure that we're bringing the right solution to bear, while we're also still laser focused on making sure that baseline is always there, that the data is reliable. I mean, Pete and Julie, I can tell you that I've had, it's been about 3 years now since we created a position that is director of analytics, or our senior director of HCM analytics, so our human capital metrics. And it's been so refreshing over the years. Like you used to have the conversations about, you would bring data to a leader or bring data to an HR leadership team meeting or something like that.
Yeah.
And you would have a lot of conversations about the data itself and whether it was, is that really accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Is that really? And now we're no longer having those conversations.
That's
the
great.
Data's
That's
good.
Great.
Now we're having the conversations of, okay, what is the data telling me, and what should we do about it? And it's so refreshing to have, to have those conversations, because people trust that,
That's a great
this
point.
is a consistent and the data's quality. So from that standpoint, I think technology, is certainly an enabler of that. But it's not, I would say it's not everything. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, for folks that feel like they never get to that part, right? And there's an awful lot of HR leaders who, do these changes over and over again. They just feel like they never get there. How long would you say that took? Because I feel like folks get disheartened, that they're just never going to get to the point where people stop questioning the data.
Yeah. Well, so let me say this first. There are cases, and I think you have to.
Hi, I'm Carmen Hudson. I'm the host of the Recruiting Book Club, and we're starting our second season. I'm so excited to bring to you another set of guests of recruiters who have written books. We are excited to have some very special guests this season. We've got Shally, we've got Craig Fisher, James Ellis, and quite a few other people that we're going to bring on board to tell us about what they wrote, why they wrote it, and maybe we'll veer off into a conversation about recruiting on all types of topics and subjects that happen in our industry. So I hope you can join us. I'm excited.
Recognize this as the person, bringing the data into the room. There are cases where I'm going to bring data to Pete, and Pete doesn't like what the data is telling him he should do about it. And so Pete's going to question the data, not because Pete really believes the data's wrong. It's just he doesn't like where it's going, right? So he's going to use that as a crutch. And so there are absolutely times where that happens, and you need to be able to kind of recognize that. One of the things that I tell people all the time, including me, I usually come to, whether it's a meeting or just an issue or whatever, I come with a point of view, and my team would tell you I come with a fairly strong point of view, but I think they would also tell you, and sometimes I do that just to get a point of view on the table that we can start beating up. Right. Yeah. Versus just starting with a whiteboard, a blank whiteboard. But I think my team would also tell you that if you show me something that disputes what I think and it's data, I'm humble enough to say I was completely wrong. Right. And unfortunately, some people aren't. So there's going to be that side of things. And it's really important to recognize that, because I've battled that, in the past. The other thing that I would say, though, is you as the practitioner really need to take a hard look at at your data practices, right? Look, I also realize, I remember doing this is kind of the far extreme example, but I remember doing a session at a conference one time, and I can't even remember what the topic of the session was necessarily, but a lady approached me afterwards, and she said, it was something along the lines of like transformation. And she approached me and said, I know we need to start this, but I just don't know where to start. And I have 114 ERPs.
Oh, wow.
Because of all the acquisitions that they had done, and they had not standardized anything. They had not done any consolidation. And if you run into that situation, I have really bad news for you. You're never going to not have is the data right conversation.
No, you need to solve that problem,
There's
right?
just no getting past that, right?
Yeah.
So you do, at some point, you do have to take some ownership of, are our data practices good enough? And I'll give you another example of this. When I came into Scripps, we had 5,000 job codes for 10,000 employees.
Oh my!
Right? I mean, that's nearly impossible, right? But we did. And we also had the situation where, Pete, you and I were in the same job code, but in the system, it says that I was non-exempt and you were exempt.
Mm.
Well, the reason that can happen is because there was nothing downstream that was reliant on that data.
Right.
Right. And so, for example, when we put in a timekeeping system, and it was like, well, guess what? We can't have that situation anymore, right? Because I need one of you to fill out a timesheet and I need one of you not to fill out a timesheet. So, one of you's got to be non-exempt, one of you's got to be exempt. And so, you start to have that type of inheritance and that rules-based approach to your data where, I'm sorry, if you're in this job code, you are going to share these attributes. Yeah. Like we're no longer going to make independent decisions about some of this data. If you're in this job code, you get these things, and here's what it means downstream. The more you can do that type of rules-based inheritance, the more consistent your data is going to be, and the more reliable your data is going to be, and you're going to stop having those conversations.
It really is everybody's responsibility, right? It's not just HR.
Absolutely.
Right. We need everybody on board with that. So, Kevin, earlier we talked about, AI a little bit, but like how prevalent is it in your organization from an HR perspective? And what is what is Scripps' viewpoint on that moving forward from a roadmap standpoint? What's kind of maybe what's next for you for HR if it's not AI?
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm, skeptical about it. I'm still trying to figure out what the right area is for AI to really help us.
Yeah.
We have been dabbling in it for a few years now with basically with a virtual assistant that you can use via a widget on your computer or you can actually SMS text it with your phone and get answers to basic questions. We've actually opened it up where you can actually it does some interaction with Workday through APIs, and so I can tell it, hey, I want to take next Friday off, and it'll actually initiate that process for me behind the scenes. So we've dabbled in it in some areas there. In terms of AI like Chat GPT, while I think it's extraordinarily cool and I've used it in some areas in my personal life, and even professionally, I think I asked it the other day a question about the interaction between HR business partners and managers, and it actually gave me a very well thought out answer. I mean, so that's really impressive. I'm not sure. So I think it's great for things like that. I'm not sure yet exactly how to start using that in mass in our HR business processes. Do I think there's absolutely, some areas for sure. But it's, Pete, as we always the corporate functions always kind of lag behind the consumer. So, they're going to work out some kinks there. We're going to figure out how to make sure that while, yes, it's a powerful tool, we can't just, I can't just open that up and say, hey, ChatGPT, respond to this employee relations case for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No,
so
agreed.
we have to figure out how to kind of right size that for what we're doing from from an HR standpoint.
Yeah. I do love the augmentative capabilities there. And I think that you're right. I think it needs to be a crawl, walk, run sort of thing, right? And you have to be able to, I believe, look at it use case by use case and understand what it's solving and how it's working and how it's going to complement your, what you have in place as it is. And is it right for that, environment? So yeah, it's good stuff. What's on the roadmap for Scripps from an HR perspective in the coming year? What are you guys focused on?
Yeah, so we are at the moment. Scripps is going through a pretty big reorganization where we've named a chief operating officer. So all the
very good.
business functions are reporting up through her now. and still some kind of trickle down effect of that type of organizational change. And we've recently announced our big news initiative, where we're kind of rethinking the way that we deliver news in the local markets. And so a lot of change from a business standpoint, and HR is obviously, reacting to that and playing our part with that change. I think from a, what we're doing kind of outside of that is really just still trying to focus on talent development and making sure that our employees are having the opportunity again to have their skills showcased and kind of be included in those opportunities that come out of this reorganization and this shake up in terms of news. So it's about enabling those things for the business. We're doing some work on the employee engagement side as well that I'm really excited about as well. So cool. I've got a lot on the plate, and a lot of good stuff that I think is truly value add beyond just, again, getting the fundamentals and the blocking and tackling right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations on all that success. I think you guys are a great example of how I think organizations should be thinking about these things. And you're a very agile group, and you're always pivoting your organization. And I think your HR obviously has a lot to to pat themselves on the back for helping enable. So congratulations to you guys.
Well, I appreciate that, Pete. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, sir. And thank you for coming on. I always love us connecting on the road and getting together and having some conversations. So I knew it would be great to have you on here. So thank you again for coming on. We always wrap up, Kevin, by just giving some insights as to where we can connect. I know you do some. I'd love to hear about. Also, we didn't talk a little bit about your coaching work in basketball and some of your nonprofit work. Where can everyone connect with you, and where maybe can we find some of your work outside that you might want to promote?
Absolutely. So, best way would be LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and then happy to connect there. I get chat requests all the time, and usually end up just saying, hey, here's an email or my phone number, kind of reach out to me that way. But that's a great way. Just some other stuff that I'm involved in. You mentioned coaching basketball at our local high school here. I'm going into my 12th year doing that, and absolutely love it. And
Congrats.
Love the parallel between coaching and my professional life, and really just being able to impact kids. And I've had a very supportive team here at Scripps that has not just allowed me to do it, but really pushed me into it. And, that's also kind of led into some nonprofit work. So one of my favorites is the Talbert House Fatherhood Committee. So I grew up, I grew up without a father. And so the Talbert House Fatherhood Committee is really devoted to helping fathers re-enter their kids' lives, whether that's been, jail, drug addiction, whatever it is, but really helping them both from a legal standpoint, but also from a skills standpoint, become better fathers. So something very near and dear to my heart. That's outstanding. There.
Yeah, I love that. How do we find them? What's their website? I'll be
Talbert
sure to
House. Talbert House is the organization here in Cincinnati, and it's the fatherhood. Talbert House does a broad range of things, but the Fatherhood Committee is the what I serve on, and then the other nonprofit that's a little more localized here in Fairfield, the town I live in, is the Purple Monkey Project, which was started after the loss of a good friend of mine, his 10-year-old daughter, back in May of 2021.
Oh my!
And to an accident, and her favorite stuffed animal was a purple monkey, so they named it after that. And we are doing some really good things in the community, and she was a serial spreader of joy.
Awesome.
That's kind of what she was known for. And so we're continuing to do that by giving kids scholarships and, partnering with some of the athletic programs and awarding, scholarships to seniors, partnering with other organizations. That are kind of youth centered, like we are, paying off school fees, doing some really good stuff in the community. So that's purplemonkeyproject.org for anybody that wants some more information about that. But those are things that I really love doing. They've allowed me to use my skills to actually, impact them in a positive way, those organizations. But there's nothing more there's nothing better for the soul than I'll use the Scripps motto: "We do well by doing good," and
absolutely.
And I think that's I've tried to live up to that in my personal life as well.
Yeah, outstanding. I'll be sure to share those in the description, your LinkedIn, as well as the both organizations, the Talbot House and the Purple Monkey Project. So thank you for what you do. Those are great things. And where are you going to be on the road, Kevin? You going to be any events this fall?
Workday Rising is a maybe for me.
Okay.
I haven't decided if I'm going to go yet again, but possibly there, and kind of we'll see from there.
How about HR Tech? You going to be at HR Tech possibly?
TBD.
TBD. All right. Well,
yes, sir.
Let's look for each other. We always connect, and I always love our conversations on the road. So
absolutely.
Thank you for doing that. Julie, what do you got going on?
Let's see. As you know, Pete, I'm deep in client work, especially in the summer, and just enjoying the heck out of that. I will be probably back in Houston, Texas area in the middle of August. So if there's anybody who might want to take advantage of that, that'd be great. And I am actually getting prepared now for the SSOW conference, the Shared Services and Outsourcing Week. It is a conference that tends to be more for practitioners than for providers, and that's what folks really like about it. Companies that are deep into, a journey and they're trying to get to shared services for the first time, or actually very mature in that journey and looking at global shared services, tend to participate there. And I'm doing a talk track this year that I think should be really fun on the trials and tribulations, failures even along the HR transformation journey. And I think it fits perfectly with what Kevin has described over and over again as part of his career, which is you learn the most. And in hindsight, oftentimes you enjoy the most, your professional journey when you're going through some of the more complicated things in your professional life. And so I think I'll be able to welcome as many as 3 folks to a panel, and actively looking right now to finalize my panel of practitioners and folks that have taken some interesting journeys and would love to share them with peers.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, good stuff. It sounds like you got a lot going on, Julie. I myself as well have a lot. You can find my newest blog on Safeguard Global's ChatSG is available now at gxtadvisors.com. And that highlights what they're doing with generative AI across their platform. I have a new report out with Payslip, the GPMI, Payroll Org, I should say, and GXT, me. Have worked together on a global payroll report that is out that you can access. You can see you can find the link to that. I'll actually put it in I'll put it in the description here, but you can find it on my LinkedIn. And of course, Daily Pay's panel is coming up. I'm doing a panel on Monday, the 24th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be doing a panel discussion with a couple of a CFO, a COO, an HR director, and we have a VP or an executive from Visa with back-end data on spend trends to round out some of these responsible usage points of view that we're going to be talking about. And then on the 26th, I will be at the South City Kitchen in Buckhead. So if you are, I'm doing that with the Magellan team. Magellan AI is doing a mixer for multinational firms here in the Atlanta area that are HR and business leaders, seeking to understand some of the dynamics around global employment. And so myself and a few vendors and the team Magellan will be there. That's at, again, 6 p.m. July 26th at South City Kitchen in Buckhead. If you want to go, just reach out and I'll get you connected to that. So look, it's been a great conversation, Kevin. Thank you again for joining us. And Julie, as always, great to see and hear from you again on this fine Friday.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me, Pete.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.